So welcome to this Monday live stream, which is going to be all about high gain, or at least decently high gain soloing and lead guitar. So hopefully you're going to get a lot of tips and advice out of this session. And I'm going to be playing a little bit now and to give people some time to join. Cool, so I'm just going to give people at GMC a chance to join as well. So I'll just be posting a little notification that goes through. It's a quick process. Yep, we're live. And I can see it's called Whammy Squeals Workshop, which it really isn't, but who cares? I don't even have a whammy on this guitar. It's all about high gain. I guess that's some old title that got stuck with us. So how are you guys doing today? Can you see and hear me? That's kind of important for me. I need to know that you guys are with me and that you can hear me. Today I've dialed up the gain a little bit, and I haven't done this in quite some time, and it feels really good because I've been playing the acoustic guitar and just with a clean tone for a long time, and that has resulted in me paying a bit more attention to the attack part of the notes. So even though this is a high gain sound coming from the Kemper, by the way, it's still very, how should I say, respectful to the attack of the sound. Because a lot of times we have compression and distortion and stuff that just muffles the sound. And I think that's okay. It can add some cool effects. But nowadays I'm really concerned about hearing the first part of the note. And that's really how you get some individuality from these lines. So whenever I play, I don't know if you can tell, but every note has its unique character. And that's really the whole point with, I think, the electric guitar. We don't want it to sound like a synthesizer, even though we can, right? We can just turn up the gain and it's going to sound like some, lead synthesizer. But we don't really want that. Rather, we want a sound that conveys basically any mistakes we do and any small differences in articulation. In the beginning, this is going to be a bit frustrating because, yeah, you're going to hear everything which messes up, right? But after a while, when you gain control, this becomes the strength of the instrument. Basically, that's really, at the end of the day, you don't want old guitars to sound like they plugged into a synthesizer. You want them to sound different. And there's no better way than making sure you don't turn up the gain too much, don't enable all these compressors and distortion pedals. Preferably use, amp distortion, or if you're like me using a digital amp, just use the gain on that digital amp, and don't, if you can get away from using pedals and boosters, that's going to be a pretty nice way to kind of respect the articulation here. So let me see if I can just edit this title. I'm just going to call it High Gain Lead. High Gain Lead. Save. Come on. Yeah, I think I did it. So by the way, I'm using a new setup now, or a setup which I haven't used in quite some time. So hopefully you can hear and see me, as you should. You know, if there's any issue, I'd appreciate if you just let me know. Okay, I think we're working. Awesome. Okay. So I'll be playing along a little bit, and if you guys have any questions or thoughts, just stop me. Otherwise, I might just end up talking by myself the whole time, which is fine. But we're going live for a reason here, so... So what I did there, basically I have, with a Les Paul style guitar where you have two volume knobs, you have an interesting option to actually turn down the volume on one of the pickups. So I've done that on this neck pickup. So when I use it, I'm actually able to play some clean chords, arpeggiated or semi-clean chords. And this is kind of interesting because I can throw in this in between my high gain leads. And I just think it adds another dimension, so you're not stuck in just playing high gain or stuck in playing you know, chords or whatever. You can kind of freely go between just at the flick of a switch. And again, right now I'm in the mood of not, you know, adding lots of pedals to the chain. I just like it simple, and the sound you get when you kind of respect the, you know, the attack part of the sound, and pedals tend to kind of alter that part of the sound. So again, if I can get away with just using simple means, then that's awesome. And that's exactly what I can do here just by flicking the switch. Of course, there's nothing stopping me from just turning up the volume if I want that fatter kind of that sound. But this particular sound, I've dialed it in, so it works actually better, I think, on the bridge pickup for high gain. Again, you can hear more of the attack. And that's another thing I like to do kind of when setting the mood and while I'm playing on my own, because I don't have the benefit of relying on, you know, some harmony that's happening in the backing track or whatever. So instead what I like to do is to combine like regular kind of rockish bluesy lines or even scalar lines with some arpeggios, okay? So by playing some arpeggios, I can kind of insinuate some kind of chord progression there. So, for example, like C sharp minor. And then I went to B major. And there A flat minor. And then going between those chords. And it's an interesting way to well, basically create some variations as you're playing a cappella. And, you know, whether you have a listener or not, just it's more interesting if there is some kind of, how do you say, discernible theory or harmony, I should say. So if you've never played an arpeggio before, I can just briefly show you an example. Let me see if I can find one in the right key here for you. Or maybe play it down here so that if you have an acoustic guitar, you can still follow along here. Let's play an E major arpeggio here. So I'm going to be starting on the 7th fret here. That's the 7th fret. On the A string. That's our first note. And then 6th fret on the D string. And then 4th fret on the G string. So we have... And then we're going to play the 5th fret on the B string. And the 4th fret on the high E string. And the 7th fret on the high E string. So those are our notes. And if we want to, we can hit that open E note first, just to get a feel for the harmony. So we're hearing the right bass note there. And then... there we have our E major triad arpeggio. And then we play the same notes going down, using a pull-off there, and then... And we can play this with sweep picking. So if you look at my right hand, down, 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 down. That's sweep picking. Pull off, up, 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 up. And that's the kind of thing I use. And of course, it takes a long time to develop accuracy and speed there, and I don't want you to push things. Let it, this is something you're gonna have to practice before you perform. But once you put that time into learning how to sweep, it's a very cool tool, not only for like fancy build-ups and fancy playing, but also for just creating harmony. So here I'm relying on the same shape, but I'm moving it around diatonically, which means I'm putting it in various places in the E major scale, which is kind of the key I'm going for right now. And wherever it fits, and there's a fancy word for that. Basically, I'm playing these arpeggios diatonically, which means I fit them in the current scale. So... So whenever you do rely on very harmonic ideas like arpeggios, then it creates a really cool contrast whenever you throw in quite the opposite, like some, how should I call it, like outside or kind of tension building line. So what I did there, I first moved around the variations of the arpeggio I just showed you. So this one. And then I also did some like pentatonic lines. So and I even threw in a bit of that flat 5 note, which is really aggressive sounding. So if you don't know what that is, basically you have your pentatonic scale here. I'm playing in the E major pentatonic on the 9th fret, so you might have seen this scale. It's a very common one. So 12, 9, 12, 9, 11, 9, 11, 9, 11, 9, 12, 9. it's an easy pattern because half of the notes are going to be on the same fret here. So what I do instead of, well, actually I make it even easier. I play an identical shapes on the first 3 strings, and which adds that outside sounding blues note. And then if you add some speed to that, you get a very cool tool that in combination with your arpeggios is going to sound really, I think, aggressive and also harmonically interesting. So if we do... So in a way, we're kind of adapting a little bit of, I guess, some jazz thinking here into our shredding, because we go between like strong sounding chordal notes and more tension building notes, and we alternate between those, and that's create that tension release thing, which is so typical to jazz. And there's really no reason why we can't steal or borrow some of jazz thinking just to create some more interesting lines. And there we go. There we have it. Back to the arpeggios. That's the arpeggio I showed you in the beginning. E major arpeggio. And again, I'm doing the exact same shape on at least 3 places. And I also play the minor triad arpeggio, which is slightly different, but pretty much the same. But of course, no high gain lead line is complete without some sustained bends and vibrato. And that's part of the reason why I play this guitar right now. I just love how a kind of Les Paul style guitar gives you the option to sustain the notes for quite some time, and also just generally really cool, I think, for bending, and gives you that kind of juicy wide sound. So if that's new to you, the basic idea here is to, instead of, like moving upwards, playing a note upwards, I could play, instead of doing that, I'm bending to that note. And that creates a totally different feel. Plus you get an opportunity there to kind of mess around with that note and do that, which is harder to do if you just play it the ordinary way. Now, in order to reach that note successfully via bending, it is a good idea to make use of your other fingers there. So you don't just want to be bending with one finger, right? You want to use your additional fingers there to get some strength. Cool, Genzilla, we have an official first comment. Awesome, man. How you doing? And glad you enjoyed the lesson. So here we have it. If we combine all the stuff I've shown you, basically the arpeggio, that outside playing using the flat 5th note, and then some bending. Let's see how that sounds. So it's a very nice finish. I started out with some sweeping. I kind of insinuated some harmony there. Again, relying on this first shape that I showed you in the beginning of the stream. And then I moved on to, you know, that pentatonic shape with the extra blues note, which I showed you. And then I ended with a bend, which I just illustrated to you. And that kind of lets the listener's ears rest a little bit, because let's face it, after this kind of sweeping and that outside fast line, ears get tired. So we need some resting points, and we need to also convey that all this build-up was not in vain. We're actually targeting a powerful, strong note, and we're not mindlessly shredding. We're building tension using shredding and using these arpeggios, so it's a very conscious way of playing fast notes. So this was a lot of fun. So Jenzilla, what are you working on now? I'm interested in hearing. Are you new to the guitar, just looking to learn your first chords, or are you into working on your lead lines, or maybe some metal riffing, or working on tracks, or whatever? We all have different phases where we're in practicing different stuff. So I guess the last thing, which I haven't really talked about and which I'm doing kind of throughout this whole illustration, is those kind of more like riff sounding passages. I'm actually doing some classic riffing with the pedal note or the returning E string and some palm muting, but I'm also throwing in some standard chords actually. So I'm basically using shapes that you might recognize, like a C sharp. Actually, I'm not using this one. So C sharp minor, yeah. And I'm grabbing just the middle part here, so the A, the D, and the G string there. And then I'm moving down diatonically, so keeping within the scale of E major. And these are, like this chord shape. You might have seen it, right? So I'm playing variations of... And that's a really nice tool. Another opportunity to kind of go between harmony and rhythm and then throw in some lead lines. And all of these things I would consider super important, so you don't get stuck, playing solos on your own and it just totally sounds, kind of detached from musical reality where you're just doing... It's all good stuff for practicing, but when you're trying to play music, which is presumably the end goal of your practicing, then you want to use these tools to kind of imply some more musical content, even if you're just practicing and playing on your own. So hopefully this somewhat made sense. I'm just going to maybe zoom out here so you can see me here. Should be somewhere here. Last time I checked, my head was there. Oh, it's there. Awesome. You can see my head. I don't know how useful my head is, but it's cool to see you. So I hope this was a nice session for you guys. I'm really getting back into these live streams, and I'm also getting back into my more shreddy sides, my high gain playing. And today I think I've dialed in more gain than I have for a very long time. And it's nice. I like it a lot. It opens up a lot of opportunities, and hopefully I've been able to show that to you guys as well. Where these opportunities are, we've spoken about arpeggios, how we can play like triad arpeggios. I've given you an example of the E major triad arpeggio within the context of that E major scale. And I showed you and explained also why it's important to imply these harmonies even as you're practicing on your own. So you give the listener a sense of, chord progression, something harmonically happening, which is something happening in all songs. So the only time you don't hear that is pretty much when you play on your own and just play a scale up and down. So the listener kind of expects to hear some kind of a harmonic progression, and arpeggios are awesome for that. And then I showed you how you can throw in some pentatonics and some outside sounding notes, to contrast that harmony. And it sounds really cool when you kind of apply this jazz thinking, where you do some strong notes, some harmonic notes, and then you alternate and you add some tension. So you get that tension release going, even though we're obviously not playing jazz, we're just shredding, but it still works really well. And then we also spoke about the importance of landing notes, and I gave you some examples of how you can bend and really give the listener a climax, show the listener that all this, shredding and whatnot actually has a goal. We're landing somewhere. We're giving the listener a strong landing note. And that's really when I think the musical sensation happens. We've created tension, we've created build-ups, and now we let the listener rest on some strong notes. So bending and vibrato and all that is really good stuff for that kind of thing. And then finally, I gave you an example of how you can just mix in some chords and some riffing to really solidify that harmonic foundation in between your lead lines. So a lot of talking here. I hope this has been useful. If you want to attend the next session, I'm either here on YouTube and even more frequently on Facebook and Instagram. And most of all, if you want to get my detailed teaching, you'll find it on the GMC website. Have a good one. See ya. Cheers. Because we're playing metal today. Have a good one.